Hey guys, welcome to Jon Ferrian Live, episode number 7. We are on tonight. Look at that, we got 10, 12 people on right away. Eric Nelson, I see you there. Edith is on. Shawn Endel is on. Jamie is on. Scott is on. We're going to have a show tonight, guys. So guess what? We have Shawn Endel going to be joining us here in just a minute or two. But before we get into all of that excitement, let me shut the music down. There we go. Music's done. And let's just do a quick. So I see Brett just joined us too. So by the way, we're going to get to that in just a second. But Brett is our guest next week on episode number 8. So we'll get to that in just a minute. So let me give you a rundown. So Jon Ferrian Live, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. I get on camera here and do a Facebook Live and just talk to you guys a little bit about something going on in the world of snowmobiling. And, you know, episode 1 was our first kickoff, weeks ago at this point. Scott Sparrow, who was one of my inspirations for the show, was the one who got me on, and we had him on our first guest. Episode number 2, we had Redneck Barbie, Mary Lynn from Alberta, Canada. And then number 3, we had Michael Smith, who was talking about search and rescue. Episode number 4, we had Kyle Engberg from the Sled Ambassador Program from NWAC. And episode 5 was Justin Davis from the Northwest Avalanche Center. Episode 6, if you caught that last week, was Jon Ferrian, mano a mano. So just me by myself, giving you guys a little bit of a heads up of what I'm about, who I'm... who I am, what I'm trying to accomplish, and get to know a little bit about to know me. And then today we have Shawn Endel again, and then next week our plan is to get on episode number 8 is going to be Brett Dow. He's with Marlon. He's going to talk a little bit about sled decks and sled deck safety. So, all right. Well, just so you guys know, tonight Shawn Endel, we're going to bring him on. Let's go ahead and bring him up. So I'm going to see if I can invite you, Shawn.
What's up?
Hey man, how's it going?
Going pretty well. How are you?
Good. Getting all settled there. Looks, are you out in the garage tonight?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thought I'd try and go with the best lighting on the property, which is here.
Well, it never hurts on a sled show to have a sled in the background. We can't beat that. So thanks for bringing it up. We'll make it a sub guest appearance. Do you have a nickname for your sled? Do you call it like anything special, or is it just your sled?
No, I try not to get too attached because it goes away every year or two. So.
Well, mine every year gets a new name. You know my name, right? It's Dory from Finding Nemo. We were out all year long trying to find Nemo this season, and my blue sled I thought looked just like Dory from the Finding Nemo show, so that's what I went with.
Oh yeah, it definitely has that color scheme.
Scott Sparrow, who's on your watch, and says that my red sled for next year, I ordered the 2019 in all red, and I think we're thinking about Clifford the Big Red Dog. Maybe we'll see what happens. Maybe we got something. We'll see what happens, man. So hey, Shawn, I really appreciate you jumping on. I know you and I had a chance earlier in the week to get on the phone and just talk through kind of what our plan was for this evening. But why don't we kick this off and just let everybody know just a little bit about yourself. Just kind of kick it off. Let everybody get to know you for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm Shawn Endel. Obviously, I'm from British Columbia, Canada. I've only been living in Washington for years now. But I picked up snowmobiling as a small child, going up to the interior of British Columbia, where getting to your friends' houses like back and forth was mostly done by snowmobile most of the year. So that's kind of where.
Nice. Nice. So how long have you been in Washington now then?
3 years.
3 years. Nice, man. What do you kind of give us the rundown of like how you got into snowmobiling to begin with? Like go way back. Were you just a kid riding with mom and dad, or is there a point in your life you decided to get into riding?
Yeah. So way back, like I said, when I was a kid, growing up in 100 Mile House, BC, we had snow most of the year. So like when I was 10, 12, all through my youth, it's like when you had to go to a friend's place, you really asked your parents to get a ride there. You jump on the sled, up and go, because like it was in the country, so there's tons of trails and networks and able to get to all those spots. That's kind of what started me with snowmobiling, anyway.
That's cool, man. And, as you kind of evolved into snowmobiling, I know you've gotten into being a sponsored backcountry rider. Do you want to go into a little bit about kind of the evolution of, getting into backcountry riding and how you got into your sponsors and, share a little bit about your sponsors that you're working with now?
Yeah, so just getting into it, I would say most of my style came from like mountain biking. Like growing up in BC, did a ton of mountain biking. And then, the way that I rode on a mountain bike kind of evolved into how I ride on a snowmobile. So the whole North Shore mountain biking, like in BC, all that popular, like the big jumps and the drops and all that kind of evolved into snowmobiling for me. And that's kind of where my riding style comes from, as well as what I love to do now. So the creativity.
Nice. You mentioned to me too that kind of the evolution of kind of getting into snowmobiling, your backcountry snowmobiling and some of the big air stuff that you're getting into too. You kind of got started in the mountain bike world a little bit too. Kind of give us a little history on the mountain biking that you did.
All the mountain biking was like, well, my parents wouldn't let me have a dirt bike when I was a kid, so I saved up all my money for nothing, and then I had money saved up, and then I was like, well, I gotta spend on something, so I went and bought like $1,500 mountain bike instead of a $1,500 dirt bike, and then that's kind of where that started. Got into that, and I was probably more dangerous on my mountain bike than I ever really would have been on a dirt bike, in my opinion. Also, then transferred over to the snowmobile once I got more into that. So, I mean, I don't know if my parents really saved me a lot, injury-wise, because it transferred over to the other sports immediately.
Well, I was going to say you must have had some pretty good wipeouts on your mountain bike back in the day too. Any notable ones you want to mention?
Nothing that I got. I mean, I probably injured myself a lot more on my snowmobile, and then in the short amount of time I spent riding dirt bikes than I did on a mountain bike. I feel like I was young and pliable, so probably back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Life's dangerous no matter what you do, man. You can ride down the street in a car, and you're on a bike, you're on a snowmobile too, man. It's like it's all calculated risk, and you just take it a day at a time. So, I've had the honor of knowing you, Shawn. I think for maybe a year or two now too. I bumped into you, I think, a couple times up on the hill, and a couple of events through the last couple of years and stuff too. And it's been an honor to kind of get to know you. And I think I even ran into you out at Heydays.
Yeah, we did.
For the folks here who, a lot of them out at the Pacific Northwest here. Tell them a little bit about what Heydays is and how you ended up out there.
Yeah, so Heydays originally ended up out because I used to run cross, and Chris Reeb, that's in this call here, him and I kind of started running for I wanted to run because he's got a lot of knowledge in that area, and we went out to Heydays to try and get sponsors and kind of get our name out there, and that's kind of where I started with the sponsorship thing. It was all from snowcross. And, we ended up picking up a couple sponsors that first year at Heydays. And then ever since then, I was like, I need to go to this event every year, regardless if it's, for whatever reason. It's nice to go out and, shake hands and talk to those people and, make sure people remember you and they can put a face to the name and show that you're committed to the sport as well.
Yeah, Heydays is incredible, man. Like the cool part for me with Heydays is I grew up in Minnesota, and I've been going to Heydays for years and years now. And over time, I had a chance to get involved with some of the local clubs who helped that event out. So the local Snow Ghost Club does all the ticketing and stuff for the event, and the Snow Barons obviously run the event and spend a lot of the money that they make there doing other great things in the community. So it's a great community event for the snowmobile community, and it's a great networking event, as you found out too. I'm sure it's helped you get in touch with a lot of the sponsors that you're working with now, right?
Yeah, a lot of the sponsors, as well as like the people that you interact with, like on a day-to-day, like social media that you would never actually end up seeing, like I did, like on the mountain that one day, or a couple times. But like some of the people you see or follow on Instagram and maybe interact with a lot, but you'd never actually run into in person. So it's a good place to like meet those friends, social media friends, I call them sometimes. Like we've been friends.
Yeah.
Years, and now you get to shake the hand and actually hang out with that person. So
yeah, cool
places you get to do that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. No, it's just tons and tons of people. I remember the first year that it was in its new location, I think there was something like 70,000+ people showed up at that event that weekend. The first day alone was like 55,000 people showed up on the Saturday when they got to that new location they're at now. So not to mention it was a big mud fest that day. I remember that too. So
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, let's go back to going big a little bit too, man. Like I know, like I said, I've seen pictures. A lot of folks who are here watching you, the reason they're here watching you is because they see you on Facebook, Instagram, all over the place, just launching, going big. And do you have maybe just a couple of quick stories you want to share about some going big moments? And I know I've seen pictures scrolling through your Facebook profile before too of you were in the hospital, if I remember right, weren't you? There was a couple big bounces that you had that maybe didn't quite work out the way you were. And can you kind of maybe share with us what happened in that case?
Yeah, that was actually one of the times I started to step my game up for doing drops, and this was in Belmont, BC, and I was also living in northern Alberta at the time, so I was able to get to the backcountry as much as I wanted to. So when I would go, I was always pushing myself way harder than I probably should, and trying to fit it into the short amount of time out to the mountains. So I picked a drop that I wanted to do, and I'd actually hit it probably 3 weeks before, and I'd been fine. I knocked the face off my handlebars, but no big deal. Like that happens. But the second time I hit the same drop, I didn't pay attention to how the snow had changed or formed under the drop. Like what happened to me was it was probably about a 70-foot drop, and the landing kind of drifted over. Instead of being like this, it drifted over to like this. So when I dropped off that, it's almost like just landed flat, and I ended up fracturing T7 and T12 vertebrae. And it was I had never done something that bad to my body before, and it was excruciating.
Yeah, I've got a couple of crushed vertebrae in my back from a accident back in Minnesota too, and I can tell you that it's not fun, and it sounds like yours was way worse than mine was. So how long did it take you to recover from that?
Well, I was off work for 3 months, but I didn't need surgery. But I mean, I still feel the effects of it today. So that's why that incident kind of like taught me to view things a little bit better, to really check what the snow are doing. Obviously, you should always ride up your landing, kind of see the snow on your landing might be completely different than the snow on your takeoff, based on like how it drifts, or how the snow's blowing in north to south. No matter what, you should always look into that stuff before you fling yourself off as something like that. I had to learn the hard way, and now I just tell all the younger kids what they need to look for before they do it.
Yeah, I remember, in our phone call earlier this week too, that was kind of something that really stuck out to me, was this part of the conversation where you were talking about how, you have to, I mean, maybe I'll let you kind of elaborate on it, but I know we talked about just how you have to treat the mountain like it's your first time every time, right? You want to, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but you want to go a little deeper into that and kind of what that's meant to you and your riding so far, not only with the jumps, but maybe other parts of your riding as well?
Yeah, there's been a couple of times I've actually I've gone up to drops that are like maybe only 20 that you would just not even think about flinging yourself off. Like I'd ride off that any day of the week, but I still walk up to the edge. I still look over. And there's been a lot of times where I've noticed, like, where even on a 20-foot drop that it drifted a different way, and there's exposed rocks where I usually go off and it off the edge differently. But like all of that stuff, if you just go for it, then so many things can go wrong. Definitely at the top, if you get twisted at the top, it's going to be bad if even off 20. So yeah,
Yeah, man.
but you need to respect.
Yeah, and it's no
weather goes.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, you got, weather out there every time you're out there. You've got, the avalanche conditions you've got out there every time. You got your landings, not hitting your hole the second time you drop. I know I don't do any big jumps and stuff too, but I've jumped enough to know that you don't want to hit your same grenade hole that you hit the first 2 times. After a while, that hole gets deeper and harder every time you hit it.
Yeah.
So.
And it gets deeper and harder when you're coming off of like 50, 60 feet that spot. So
yeah, dude, I've seen some of the shots of the stuff you've dropped and jumped and stuff too, man. It's just insane. So
yeah,
cool. So I know over the last year here, I know that you got associated with the group up here in the Northwest here called the Northwest Freeriders, and you've met some of those folks over the last year or so too. Do you want to share with us maybe how you got involved in that group and kind of what that group means to you and kind of how it has evolved?
Yeah, I got involved with them. Like, not I was unofficially involved with them just because when I first moved to Washington, I had some of the members had direct messaged me on Instagram, and they're saying like, "Oh, you looks like you go ride a lot like us," and then they invited me to ride. I became friends with most of the guys or all the guys in the group and all their friends. So I started riding with them all the time, and then it was more so like recently that it came to a point where they asked me to be a part of the group, and well, especially now, let the memory of Luke live on because he was the one of the main guys of that. So that's that.
Yeah, I know Luke was kind of the head guy of the Northwest Freeriders, and as many of us know and that follow too, there was a really unfortunate incident that happened back on March 10th of this year, and in conversation with you, if you're up for it, I'd love to, just have you share a little bit about that day and what happened, maybe what led up to what was going on, and whatever you're comfortable sharing today, Shawn. The platform is yours, and to me, I think part of what I'm hoping to accomplish here today is to expose the riders that are on here watching, to the awareness of kind of what we've talked about already, which is, the mountain changes daily, and, you have to plan for it. You have to treat it like your first time each time. And, every day you can have a great day, and sometimes it takes a turn for the worse really quickly.
Yeah.
And, would love to just kind of have you share us and walk us through, your point of view on, what happened that day.
Yeah, so that day was it was a perfect weather day. It was one of those days where you had a couple feet of fresh snow. It was bluebird. You had a pretty good guys all riding together, and Luke got all excited about the drop that he'd hit in the past, and then we went basically beeline for that spot right away. And we spent, well, actually he ended up taking he wanted to go off the high spot that he did go, and Randy was taking photos of him, but he's like, I can't do it today. It's not like the weather. Like, he even like dialed himself back that day, and it was like, I can't go off this spot. I'll just go off this other spot here. So we ended up spending a bunch of time like building a takeoff there, and then he'd gone off there before, so he owned it. Got to go first, and I was going to go after him, and then as soon as he hit track hit the snow, it just across the whole hill and just took him all the way down, just covering him up and took him all the way down. So that's is a super hard thing to stand on the top, watch that, but no one needs to, we all need to be better with how we we assess these hills or these jumps, and so yeah.
Yeah, it's a horrific day. I think everybody who knows it and has memorized what's happened that day and been exposed to it. Like, I've personally been up to the area in the zone riding a couple of times now since the accident, and it's just you look at the hill and it's just incredible to think of what would have been happening that day on the mountain. And I know you shared here and with me personally that you were planning on dropping the same drop, and it's one of those things that it's a big reality check. I know for you as you go through this, and losing a really close friend, like Luke, is just such an incredible inspiration to everybody in the industry and sport and here in the Pacific Northwest. Another good friend of you guys is Adam. I had a similar conversation too, and I know as part of that same accident, he had a little bit of a close call with just being in the wrong place trying to take some pictures that day. And to some degree, it could have been worse, unfortunately, but I guess, to me, the biggest thing, for yourself or for others as they're watching this is, when you reflect back on that day, are there things that you've learned from the event that you want to share out with others?
Yeah, I guess like the main thing that I learned or that I want people to know more about is just definitely be more prepared, and then obviously to just assess, you should almost like, well, obviously the avalanche training is number one. Something everyone needs to do if you're going to ride in the backcountry, especially in riding type of zone. Needs that, as well as the equipment, all the equipment. But then, like, as far as like a group of guys riding together that are going to push it like that, you should spend time and, dig the pit, check the snowpack. Also, you should never make somebody else feel like you have to do something like that. If you don't feel safe with it, you just say you don't feel safe. And, most of the time, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, all right, man, we won't do it. We don't have to do this. We go somewhere else or find someone else. It's not a big deal. So that's number one. I think like next thing was like, I think more people need the equipment. I noticed a lot of people were there and only a few people were helping. I think it was only because they didn't have the equipment to like actually help. Like
Yeah, I know that.
simple beacon.
Yeah, no, I know one of the things you shared with me on the phone was, something, I kind of asked you, what went wrong that day, what went right that day. And, as far as what went right that day, I know you had mentioned about, someone taking control and taking, leadership positions that day. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that definitely went right that day was Adam Cars. He took control of the scene. Like he made sure like the people that were standing around not knowing what to do. He told them what to do and where to go, and he definitely kept the sense of urgency in everybody's mind, which I think is what you need in that time where you're just kind of like lost, know what to do or how to deal with the situation. Because most people in that situation haven't ever been before and they don't know what to do. So having someone take charge and really tell people what to do, it was a bit like a big positive of that. Everyone needs that. Everyone needs to get do it and not just sit around and wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from, training and experience, right? I mean, the more you practice with your equipment, your training, you go through classes. I know myself, even being involved in the Avalanche Center, I make a point of going through, an awareness class every single year, a 1 day on the snow class, just to be able to practice. When I'm out riding with friends and stuff too, we're always practicing. And, I've witnessed myself, luckily nobody was caught in it, but I've witnessed some pretty severe avalanches myself. And, because of some of the things and the training that, there's positive outcomes sometimes too with these things that happen. And, you watch folks, make decisions that, have positive outcomes a lot of times. And, there was a story in the phone that you shared with me, Shawn, too, about a different ride, a different day, about how you were going with some friends up to Summit Mount Baker that day. Do you want to share a little bit about that story? I thought that was an awesome example of, kind of in the moment, making a decision, in your mind to, where you got uncomfortable and you backed off that day and, it was a positive outcome. Do you want to share a little bit about that day? I think that was a great story.
Yeah, we'd ridden up to me and a couple other guys. We'd ridden up to the crater of Mount Baker, which is always a very cool experience to witness that and the steam coming out and everything. It's really cool. But the guys wanted to go right to the summit. And in order to go to the summit from the crater, you have to side hill like across the mountain and then go up. But you're side hilling above a giant crevasse, and this is spring snow, so like when you're trying to go down the mountain in spring snow, it doesn't matter how much you lock up your brakes, you're just going to start tobogganing down the hill, and you can put it in reverse and stop yourself, but it's kind of a sketchy situation. So I side hilled half across the mountain, and then I stopped. My ski dropped down, and I couldn't sled back up on edge again. And then I said, I don't feel safe anymore. Like I'm just gonna go back down. It's not worth it right now for me to try and get up to the summit and then try and navigate my way back down without ending up losing my sled in 800 foot or whatever. So, I mean, I didn't feel safe. And then one of the other guys that I always ride with, he said, "Yeah, man, I don't have to go up there. We just flip it around right now, and no big deal. We'll go do other stuff." So that's just kind of an example of, you don't always have to go do the cool thing or see the cool thing if you feel safe.
Yeah, the cool thing is going home at the end of the day and seeing your beautiful wife. I know you're pretty passionate about her, and that your family's up to, as I am too. I mean, I've got my kids and my wife here that it's what I live for, man, is coming back home safe every night and being there for them. And getting out there. And to some degree, I know, your goal is now probably very similar to what mine's been, is to try and be a role model for others out in the backcountry of, how to have a great, fun, exciting day, but do it in a safe manner. So
Yeah, for sure.
cool. Well, I think, for the most part, we've covered a lot of the things that we wanted to cover today. I guess, my twist question for you that we haven't really talked about is, what's your vision for your riding career going forward now? Is, are you looking to get into new, different, bigger sponsorships? I have a feeling this show is going to get shared around quite a bit, and we're going to hit a lot of the local sled show, sled events, or the Facebook pages for the sleds, locations and stuff. And if somebody sees us out there, you got a sponsor, maybe a want to have sponsor on the checklist, who'd you like to give a shout out to that you'd love to get connected with?
I'm looking for a sled deck sponsor. I know you got one of those, right?
Sled decks next week. We're going to watch Brett Dow's on the show here. He'll be talking about sled decks next week, so make sure you follow along and tag him up next week. So.
Yeah, and if there's any manufacturers out there looking for a marketing guy, I'm looking.
There you go. Sounds good. Well, let's see if anybody has a couple of questions here. I'll kind of do a quick recap, but for everybody who's watching here, let's drop some questions into the chat line here. Shawn, why don't you think if there's something else you want to cover here too? But let's just kind of do a pause and a recap. Is for those who've here and watching, please feel free to share this out, add some comments, let us know what's on your mind. But for those who've maybe joined just recently, this is Jon Ferrian Live. We do a once a week show, 7 p.m. on Sunday nights Pacific time, and we're always focused on something along the lines of sled safety, backcountry safety. Maybe even land access issues. We've shared a little bit of information here and there. We'll continue to do the, just kind of grow the sport and, make sure people are having a great time, enjoying this sport and getting out there safely. And, just would love to have people help share this out and get the message out of what we're trying to do. So,
yeah.
With that, tonight we have Shawn Endel on. Shawn's a sponsor backcountry rider. Grew up in BC, moved down to Washington years back and has done everything from, mountain biking to sledding, snowcross. That was one thing we haven't talked about yet too, is your little stint in snowcross. If you want to touch on that, if there's something else you want to, but before we do that, let's go. We got a quick question here. So I've got a question from Shane Martin. What's your highest drop? So what's the largest drop you've done so far, Shawn?
So it's hard for me to put a number on it because it's pretty unconfirmed, but based on the formula of the free fall time, the highest drop I did was at the Mount Bay, and it was roughly around 120 feet.
Wow. That's huge, man. Like, I've accidentally fallen like 30 or 40 feet before by accident, and that was no fun. But I'm sure it's maybe a little better when you're paying for it. So the next thing we had was, how did you get out of the backcountry with a broken back? So when you got hurt that time up in Valmont, it sounded like where you're at. Can you talk a little bit about the day of getting off the mountain that day, where you have the helicopter out, where you brought out on a stretcher? Were you able to ride out? What was the situation?
I was in pain, but I compressed my spine and didn't go out of alignment. So I was just in like a ton of pain, and I ended up just riding. I rode out the rest of the day. So, like I said, it was my first big injury, so I didn't realize how injured I was until about a week and a half later.
Yeah, I know the day I broke my back too, those compression fractures, you can, in an urgent situation, ride out, but it's painful, I can tell you that. Mine, I don't think I rode a mile back, and I was freezing up. Muscles were just like clenching up like crazy, and it was no fun. So
yeah, I had a bunch of pain
cool
in my bag to get me out. So at least I had that.
Yeah, that helps. And then Eric Nelson, I think, was asking, what was your favorite ride this year? Like, did you have any destinations that you went to this year that you were extra excited about? Did you ride out of state or even in state? What was your favorite place to ride this year?
This year I went to Sycamore, Revelstoke with Ethan Taylor, and that was probably one of the most memorable rides of the year. As far as pushing parts of the wheeling area that I'm not the most comfortable with. So I really had a lot of fun and learned a lot that weekend. We didn't have very good weather, but we had about 5 feet of fresh snow, so it forced us to ride the trees all the time, which is not my forte, but he step my game up that weekend just by forcing me to do it.
There you go. Nice, nice. So Brandy Floyd here is on watching you tonight too. Another local rider here that's out there making it happen, and she wants to know what kind of suspension do you run for these big drops?
Well, this year I've been riding my stock suspension cranked as stiff as but next year, I mean, that's another, like you asked earlier, like what sponsor are you looking for? I've always been looking for a pension sponsor, so maybe next.
So those guys out there like Fox or Raptor or some of those other guys out there, I bet they've got some sweet shocks they'd love to get on you.
Yeah, I actually had discussed with Zebros already, so that's a possibility as well. I just with the Luke thing this year, I ended up not taking a bunch of time off riding, and I didn't end up spending any more money on my snowmobile after that.
Yeah, yeah. So as we're waiting for a couple more questions drop in, our good buddy here, Louis Bruno, wants to know if he can have our autograph. And I'm sure he's talking to me, right? He wants my autograph. He's being a smart aleck.
Probably already have.
But exactly. So do me a favor, though. One thing that we didn't really get into too much is just kind of what you would call, like what I've seen and what I would, just talk about is the brotherhood of the riders out there, right? Like it's, the whole thing around calling each other buds and getting out there, just hanging out and being brothers on the hill, right? Brothers and sisters out there as we're killing it and hitting the backcountry. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that's meant to you over the last few years as you've gotten to know the different groups that you're riding with now?
Yeah, I think the community as a whole is pretty awesome. Like you can see that when you go to Hayden, how amazing people are. As far as locally, everyone here is amazing. Like when you go out on the hill, everyone's so welcoming and helpful. If you see someone stuck and you have no idea who they are, like everyone's always help everybody else. And as far as even more, like just my buds, it's we're like family. You do anything for any one of them. So and that's what I'm looking for when you choose a group to ride with. You need to choose ones that you legitimately would feel okay with your life in their hands. That's kind of the group that I ride with. We are like that, and I am confident when I go out for a ride with them. If I needed help, that they'd be more than willing to get in there and do something they didn't want to do or something that they were worried about. They'd be there to help me live or survive or come, whatever. So I think that everyone needs to choose those to ride with people that will do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's one of those things when I go out for a ride, I don't care if it's a beginner level ride or an advanced ride or what it is, but minimum expectations is everybody's got the equipment and everybody has at least a basic understanding of how to use it. And if they don't, we spend some time on the hill that day, especially with the beginner riders that don't have a lot of experience. We'll spend some time out there. So, I knew it was going to come eventually. Our good buddy Renee up in BC, he just asked, fear to beard. I'm just going to say, what was the inspiration for the beard over the years? What's got you to the point where you're just hanging tight on that big, thick, bushy sucker?
Because if you ever saw me without it, you'd probably ID me and you wouldn't recognize me. So.
Well, it was funny. My wife and I actually were going through some of your old profile pictures as we were getting ready for this. I was looking through to kind of grab some shots to be able to share out for our little teaser shot there. And I was like, holy crap, there's some pictures of him without his beard on there. And it's like you said, you don't even recognize him.
Yeah, so that picture you probably saw was the last time I have a beard. So that was probably 10 years ago.
That's crazy, man. So, all right. So Shane Martin here says, if you could pick any sled for next season, what would it be? What would you pick? So let's assume there's no budget here. We don't have to worry about it. Money's unlimited or you're fully sponsored. What sled would you ride next year?
So I've actually been toying with the idea because of Adam to go back to a 146. Because I think that I can probably ride all the same spots I do with my 154 3-inch, but definitely more something I can jump a lot easier or around in the air or manipulate in the air. I think I can get a lot more wild with the. So probably the sled that you ordered in red, but a 146. I think that's probably what I'd get.
Nice.
or
Nice.
Freeride 146, one of the two.
Yeah, good sleds, man. Brandy wants to know what your funniest stuck was. You have a good stuck story, something super funny?
Yeah, a couple of them happened this year, and I think the funniest one I had this year was um, I was trying to keep up with Luke and Ethan in the trees. It was basically the story of my season, and I fell back a little bit, but I was just pushing really hard to try and keep up, and I tried to side hill across above a tree well, and there was only about 3 inches of snow over top of ice, and my sled kind of just slipped out, and I fell down into, and I was kind of just for a while, and then as soon as they found me, it was like everyone also piled into the tree well. So Luke stopped. He jumped down to help me get unstuck. Tyler showed up, and his ski was almost in the tree well with me. Ethan pulled over the hill, and then Joey came in, and we were almost all in the tree well at the same time. And then we got my sled out, and as soon as my sled got out, Luke also just fell into the same hole. So unstuck, but it was a fun story in a good Snapchat apparently.
Yeah, no, those are good times, man. Like sometimes our failures are the best shows ever. Like, man, I look at just this last few weeks, like you're like me, you're always putting stuff out on social media, sharing, and in your mind, you're thinking like, oh, people want to see that great shot of you doing this, big climb or this big jump or whatever it is that you're doing. And nope, really, all everybody wants to see is see you crash or fail or whatever. Because like I shared, I don't know if you remember my show from last week, a little video clip of me getting bucked off my sled and flipping over the handlebars. I was just cruising through some old footage here the other day and came across it, and I'm like, holy crap, there's like 12,000 views almost on this video. Right, normally you get like 1,000 views, couple thousand views if you're lucky. 12,000 views just because I was getting flipped over the handlebars. Everybody seems to enjoy that, I guess. So.
Yeah, I always get more views on fails than my successes. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a good life lesson, honestly, man. Like we got to not take ourselves so seriously sometimes, and not forget to have a little fun out there. So I appreciate you sharing the funny stuck story. It's a great question, Brandy. Thanks for bringing it up. So we got somebody on here named Luke. Looks like says, what was your favorite track to go race? Keep up the great work, by the way. So that'll maybe a good transition for talk a little bit about your snowcross history. I'm assuming maybe the track we're talking about is snowcross track. Did you have a best experience when you're out there doing that?
Yeah, my favorite track, all the tracks I rode, was Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's
nice.
It's definitely the best track because they always have the most, even at the end of the season. So it was on a ski hill, and they just had the most like diverse track, like uphills and downhill whoops and downhill jumps and like uphill with crazy jumps at the top and badass corners. So like the track, and it always played really well into my backcountry abilities because you have a lot of these racers that just, rode flat Minnesota or whatever, and then they'd ride on a track that was cut on flat ground but with big jumps, and then you get to Lake Geneva and it would be a hill, like a real hill with jumps up and jumps down, and it kind of just played into my riding style a little bit. So I was
nice,
a little bit better there, maybe a little bit out of control some, but I just tried to go fast.
Yeah. So who are some of the legendary snowcross racers besides yourself, of course, that you got to race against out on the tracks? I mean, did you get hit the old Trucker, Hibbert, Levi LaValle folks? Anybody else that you mentioned?
Those guys, but I raced against Zach at a bunch of races. He's probably the most notable racer that I raced against.
Okay, cool. All right. So what else on your man? It's a little freestyle right now. Anything you want to wrap it up with tonight, or you want to head out, or what do you want to do? You want to keep rolling here?
Yeah, whatever you got, man. If people got more questions, or you got anything else you want to add, I'm down, man.
Yeah, for me, I think I've covered most everything we were going to cover tonight, so I'm pretty content with the show tonight. I appreciate you jumping on as we kind of do a little bit of a wrap up here. We might get a question or two drop in, but for sure want to say thanks for taking time out of your day and getting out here on the show with me. And I know just even not being directly involved, I would tell you that it takes a lot, I know, to get on and just share a story like you did about the day that, Luke passed away. That's a close friend, and, it's great that you're able to, honor and tribute him the way you have. Maybe maybe that's a great way to give a tribute as we sign off. Do you have a favorite fun story of Luke that you want to share? Like, maybe a most fun or best memory you ever have of hanging out with Luke?
It's tough because every single experience with Luke was one of those. So I can't even really put my finger on one because there's so many. I just I was all getting stuck in the tree well. So that's probably
that was a good story.
I also spent some time mountain biking with Luke too, which is always a lot of fun. Yeah. It's hard to really put my finger on a single one because the blast.
Yeah,
that really lifted everybody else around him up. So is going to be
awesome. Yeah, I met him in person a couple times at a few of the different snow shows, both at Leavenworth and Puyallup and stuff too. And he was always a great guy, and grateful to be able to talk to you and take time out of your day and shake hands and talk sleds. So it's great.
Things
I got a couple more.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we got a couple more questions rolling here. So Brandy says, seems like it'd be a natural for snow biking. Have you tried it yet? Have you tried snow biking yet?
I have not tried a snow bike yet, and the reasoning is because I'm not that good on a dirt bike, so I can't be a different version of a dirt bike, a less dirt bikey version of a dirt bike. I can't do much at it. I'd probably get frustrated. And then also, whenever I watch snow bikers go at something, it seems like never get enough speed for anything, which would also would frustrate me a lot. I feel like on a snowmobile I can just give it a half throttle at anything and be 30, 40 feet in the air.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a different animal, and I look forward to getting some serious time on a snow bike. The only time I've been on a snow bike so far personally is just at a demo event, just some really crappy hard snow down some trails, and it was intriguing enough that I was interested to try it again sometime. So, Brandy or anybody else out there who's got a snow bike here in Washington, they want to take me out for a spin, I'm always up for it. Feel free. I bet Shawn would be too. You'd be willing to try it about once, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd definitely give it a try. I know that's probably not going to be my thing, but I would try it.
Sounds good, man. Well, it's always good to finish on a high note here, man. We got some good viewers, and I think we've had a great show tonight. So, again, final thank you, and really appreciate you. And, look forward to seeing you out in the snow. I know you're going to have a great summer, and guarantee I'll see you at the snow show again in the fall, if not sooner. So.
For sure, man. I'll be there.
All right, man. Have a good one. Appreciate you.